What's the best Wispr Flow alternative on Android? Hi, my name's Richard, husband, founder, father of 5. And today we're going to look at the best Wispr Flow alternatives on Android specifically. And lucky for you, I've tried a ton of them. Wispr Flow, Typeless, Yaps.ai, Super Wispr, Aqua Voice, Paraspeech, FUTO, SwiftKey, you name it. I've tried it. And TLDR, I actually think Yaps.ai is probably the best voice typing tool on Android, but these are my reasons why. But let's begin with Wispr Flow. As it stands, Wispr Flow is the most popular voice typing tool out there, but just because it's the most popular doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Now, 3 key reasons why I think Wispr Flow is problematic specifically on Android. Number 1 is the UX. Wispr Flow didn't go for the approach of actually implementing a keyboard. That's actually quite complicated. And so for speed, what they've done is they've done a floating UI button that appears on all your screens. Now that's a lot easier for them to implement, but the issue is that means you've always got this button that's floating around on the screen that you have to keep on moving out of the way, even when you're not necessarily typing. And when you are typing, it's still taking up space on your screen. It's not practical, and it's quite frustrating at that. And so just from a UX perspective, it's not great. Like, the phone screen is already small enough. You don't necessarily then want some button floating around taking up space on the screen. It just takes up real estate. Practicality is the second issue. Usually when you're typing on a laptop or something like that, you're stationary, you're in a home office, a cafe, somewhere, right? And so there's usually Wi-Fi, which means that if you're using Wispr Flow, their solution requires you to record your voice. It sends your voice off to their servers, it processes it and does all that it wants to do, and then it sends it back to your device. You need internet, you have internet. But when you're using mobile, generally speaking, you're going to be traveling. You're a lot more mobile, no pun intended, which means you're going to be traveling around, right? You might be in a park, you might be on the underground, in a train, you might be in an Uber or whatever. But there's going to be many times where you're in places and you don't necessarily have internet, or you have very spotty connections, which means in those situations, Wispr Flow is not just not practical, it doesn't work because you can't send off your voice in that instance to their servers. And that means something as fundamental as typing just doesn't work, which is actually very frustrating. And that brings us on to the final point. Why should I have to send off my voice to your servers? Privacy. This is already a concern with Wispr Flow generally and all their products, but on Android specifically, Wispr Flow doesn't just ask to hear your voice. Wispr Flow is quite aggressive in terms of the number of permissions that it requests. I think I went through the onboarding process and it asked me for like 6 to 8 permissions just to get set up. It wanted to see my screen and it wanted to see everything I was doing and it wanted to record things. Like, it's way too much. And obviously they need all that information in their mind so that they can give you more context. But even their founder has said in some of their posts more recently, how do they sell to people? Well, they sell by selling to their existing customers. And how do they know what their existing customers want? Well, they know that because they can see everything their existing customers are saying and doing. That's how they know what customers want. They are actually monitoring all of your stuff. And so I don't necessarily want to give Wispr Flow access to everything that I'm doing on my phone at all times because that's quite personal. And they need access to every screen because they have this floating thing that appears even when you're not typing. For me, that's too much. Like, I'm not even the most hardcore when it comes to privacy related things, but that is a step too far. Many steps too far. And so for the sake of UX, practicality, and privacy, I think Wispr Flow is actually quite a poor solution when it comes to Android specifically. We probably have similar issues on iOS, even though the issues differ in terms of the implementation there. Now, that brings me on to why I think Yaps.ai is actually the best alternative. Yaps is a lot better because it addresses all 3 of those issues. Yaps doesn't go for the floating button, it actually does the hard work of re-implementing the keyboard itself. And so everything that you would expect in a normal keyboard, Yaps provides. Glide typing, autocorrect, next word suggestions, even the more complex things like holding the spacebar and swiping left and right to control your cursor, or gestures in general, or being able to swipe down your keyboard and minimize it altogether. Various things, Yaps actually has it implemented. It's even got a persistent clipboard that supports both images and text. It's really good. And it's so good that it was even trending as the best post in the Gboard subreddit. Like, how do you trend at the top of another man's Reddit? But that's how good it is. But not only that, Yaps has embedded within it this dictation button at the top right, which handles dictation incredibly well. It even streams the dictation so you can see what you're saying as it's coming in, and then it cleans up at the end when you press the tick button. It's really, really good, and it works really, really well. And the keyboard itself and the dictation model supports 25 different languages, so it is really, really strong. Now, what about all the other solutions that are on Android? Now, they tend to fall short for one of several reasons. Either you have an existing keyboard solution like SwiftKey or something, and they've just tacked on dictation. Because dictation isn't really their main product, it tends to be quite weak. So it's not necessarily the best dictation model, or it doesn't have really robust cleanup, or they haven't really optimized latency and things of that type of nature. There tends to be something of that type of issue. as far as the other kind of dictation models go on these types of keyboards. The error rate is quite high, etc. Or you get the other end of the spectrum where you get a vibe coded company who's come up and created a keyboard that's specifically based on dictation. However, they've actually missed out the core features, the keyboard. There is no re-implementation of the keyboard. And so you've just got a big microphone button that you press, and dictation works quite well. Often it has really good cleanup. For example, companies like Typeless do this. They even have the ability to edit some of the things you said just by pressing an edit button or whatever, which is quite cool. But the issue is, whenever you want to enter a password or type in a form or do something that's quite bespoke, you end up having to go back to another keyboard. Even if you want to make a small edit, it's actually a lot more expensive at that point and time consuming to go back and be editing by voice. Actually, or given an LLM instructions in terms of the things that you want to change. It's just time consuming. What you want to do at that point is you want to go back and just type or press backspace or do something like that. And that becomes headache on something like Typeless. And so what do you really want? You want a keyboard that supports both traditional keyboard related functionality, but you also want something that has perfect voice typing. Yaps provides all of that and more. And I say and more, not lightly. It provides text to speech. It also provides robust note taking that even syncs with your desktop, like Obsidian. There's loads of features that come within Yaps that make it a really, really robust product, but I probably think it's just quite underdiscovered versus its competitors at the moment. That is quickly changing though. It is gaining a lot of momentum. And so my personal recommendation would be to try Yaps.ai as a replacement for your Wispr Flow on Android. And if you're feeling fun, try it out on your other devices as well. It works cross-platform. It even has a Chrome extension. So that's my review for today. Hope that was helpful. If you like this, like, share, subscribe, check out the channel. I'll be producing more videos hopefully in the short term. But yeah, stay safe. Cheers.